So welcome to today's webinar on school leadership grants. As you can see on the screen, my name is Aisel Kipruta and I'm the head of communications at ESSA. We are very pleased to host this webinar on the African Center for School Leadership Research Grants, which aim to strengthen African-led research, generate evidence, and inform policy on school leadership across the continent. So today's session is really about guiding you through the grants. We want to highlight the priority research areas. We want to provide practical information on eligibility, on application and submission, so that you can be well prepared to send a strong and competitive proposal. So listen keenly, and we are looking forward to a great conversation. This webinar is organized or brought to you by ESSA, ADEA, FAWE, and VVOB with financial support from the MasterCard Foundation. So before we start, we want to just share some housekeeping rules. So this webinar will last for 1.5 hours or 90 minutes. So we ask for your patience throughout that session. We will also be recording this webinar so that we can be able to share with you after this event. We also want you to introduce yourself in the chat. Please tell us where you are joining from, the organization you are joining from, and we'll be happy to have all those details. Interpretation is available in English and French. Please select your preferred channel and remain on that channel throughout so that we can have a smooth flow of information. We also want you to share your questions, your concerns, your comments. We appreciate that a number of people have already shared that. But if you have more questions or comments, please share on chat and we will be sure to address those concerns or questions during the Q&A session. I want to share the objectives of this webinar. And I have 3 objectives. One is we want to introduce the African Center for School Leadership, the strategic vision, and also the research grant opportunities. We also want to clarify the country-specific and the continental research priorities, eligibility, the requirements, and also the submission procedures so that you can be in a good position to share your proposal. We also want to explain to you your responsibilities, including reporting, dissemination, and also address your questions so that you are in a good position to submit a rigorous, high-quality proposal. I also want to give some context on this topic of school leadership. And it's something I'm very passionate about because I always say a school is as good as a leader. So the whole aspect of school leadership is really important. But despite this importance, we realize that evidence from Africa is limited and fragmented. So this conversation is really important. So the ACSL Research Grants aim to strengthen the African-led research. It aims to generate policy-relevant evidence and support regional learning on aspects of school leadership. These grants offer both country-level depth in Tanzania and continental reach through Pan-African collaboration. So today's webinar will guide you on how to access these research grant opportunities and be in a good position to submit rigorous and impactful proposal. We also hope to share a survey at the end of this webinar so that we get we get your feedback on how we can improve these kind of events. So thank you so much for joining us. I can see we already have 500 people in this webinar, and we are looking forward to a great conversation. I now want to hand over to Chantel Kabanda from VVOB, who will provide us with an overview of African Center for School Leadership and its strategic rationale. Welcome, Chantel, and over.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm very happy to introduce the African Center for School Leadership. which is a Pan-African initiative, which was established in 2020 as a Pan-African coalition of partners committed to promoting effective school leadership. So this initiative is coordinated by three partners that you can see on the screen there: ESSA, FAWE, and VVOB. So the ambition of the center is to build supportive school leadership systems that strengthen teaching and improve learning outcomes and well-being for all. So we believe that with the ACSL's work at policy level, policy development, practice, research, communication, advocacy, and sector coordination, will strengthen school leadership professional development systems and at school level effective leadership, which in turn will improve environment and conditions for teaching and learning in schools, and in the end, improve student learning, well-being, and reduce gender and equity gaps. If you can move, okay. So the focus areas include policy development and reform. This is the focus over there. The other one is school leadership professional development, is the focus of VVOB. Research and evidence generation, which is the focus of ESSA, and actually this research grant is part of this. Communication, advocacy, and sector coordination. And then lastly, we have gender equity and social inclusion, which is the focus of FAWE. The ACSL's approach is at two levels. At Pan-African level, we collect and disseminate best practices and facilitate learning and exchange among policymakers, professional development providers, and researchers. And at country level, ACSL provides support, needs-based support, and demand-driven, based on the mapping that is conducted at country level. ACSL has expanded since its foundation phase from 3 countries, that is Kenya, Rwanda, and Ghana, to 5 more countries in its implementation phase. We are now actively involved in Tanzania, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Malawi, and Uganda. Our partners include, in line with the ACSL two-way approach. So we work both at country and Pan-African level. So at country level, we are working closely with government partners through the ministries of education and their affiliated agencies and the school leadership professional development providers, as well as technical partners, including development partners. And at Pan-African level, ACSL is working with learning partners, advocacy partners, researchers, and academic institutions. And of course, we are also supported by philanthropies, bilateral and multilateral agencies. So how we define school leadership, it is from the distributed perspective. So leadership, we see it as a distributed practice, whereby school leadership is not the responsibility of one individual, the school leader or the principal. Rather, we see leadership distributed across multiple actors at different levels. At school level, we see the leaders, including the head teacher, principal, and their deputies, the teacher leaders, the school management committees, and even the student leaders. And at a system level, leaders include both local and central levels, such as district or regional officials, inspectors, and even ministry officials. We even go beyond the system level to include also non-state actors such as civil society organizations, teachers, and school leaders union or associations, as well as education coalitions, any actor who play a role in influencing educational leadership. So if you want to learn more about the center, you can visit our website. Now, at this point, I invite my colleague, Leila, to continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chantel. Good afternoon, good morning, colleagues, depending where you are. So I'm Dr. Leila Hussein Abdullahi. I'm the Director of Research and Program Delivery at ESSA, and I'll talk about Tanzania and PANA research priorities. So just to give some background, we understand why school leadership is an area of interest. We take note that it's an increasingly recognized area, and it's basically the cornerstone of education quality, equity, and improved student learning outcome globally. In sub-Saharan Africa, for example, in Tanzania, which we work within the center, school leaders are expected to go beyond administrative roles, and I believe this is similar to other contexts in Africa, and basically to act as an instructional leaders, change agent, and community connectors. We also take and acknowledge that there is a number of education reforms in the context. For example, competency-based curriculum, for example, fee-free education, mention them. And we note that most of these lack structured leadership preparation. Importantly, many leaders in Africa enter their position without structured preparation or ongoing professional support. This is something that we have noted during the mapping exercise that I'll talk about briefly. Importantly, the leaders' training and CPD opportunities remain fragmented. We have them, it's fragmented, sometimes lack of systematic structure, policies that are very ad hoc, that leads to misalignment of basically our actual need. The methodology that I've talked about in terms of mapping exercise, this is something that we have done in those countries that my colleague talked about. For example, Tanzania, Sierra Leone, Malawi, and also the Pan-African context. So basically, this is a very robust methodology where we're trying to understand the need, but also see how we can address the need following a co-creation workshop. For example, the journey starts with a very comprehensive and very robust stakeholder engagement where the stakeholders are mapped, the tools are prepared in terms of also engage. Basically, the tools get feedback from various stakeholders to show that it's a very consultative kind of an exercise. Additionally, we also do desk review, literature review, where we contextualize. For example, if you're in Tanzania, as an example, we go to local literatures in local websites and gray resources in this space, as an example. Importantly, we also do an online survey or interview, depending on the context. A good example, if we were in PANA context, we used an existing platform, like, for example, the triennial that happened in end of October. In Ghana, we used such a platform where we did a number of online survey and also face-to-face interviews with stakeholders to understand the situation based on the topic. Importantly, all these great findings, we validate it in a forum where we bring stakeholders together based on the context. For example, with Tanzania, we bring relevant stakeholders in the space. We showcase the finding from the mapping exercise. And most importantly, we also co-created the research agenda related to the need following the desk review, the survey, and also all that great work, including the roundtable discussion from the stakeholders in the area. That followed with a proper action plan, which we call it a roadmap, to showcase how solution-oriented structure will be discussed, and critically for the research agenda, this is what have informed the themes that you will see in those grants documents that you have seen that has been advertised. Some of the key findings to note that we observed I'm talking generally from all the contexts. I'm talking about Sierra Leone, Malawi, Tanzania, and Pana as an example. Some of the key finding is inadequate access to school leaders' research funding. And that one, I think most of the stakeholders also echoed during the interviews. The other area and key space was research and evidence on school leaders. It was limited and is still limited and very fragmented and underrepresented globally. We also noted weak linkage between evidence and policy and practice. Even though sometimes we have a bit of evidence somewhere, it's not connected to the policy and practice. And the other way, we have policies that are not evidence-based, as an example. Another area is school leader research is often embedded in a broader study. So sometimes you cannot pick up that this is a school leadership great work. Rather, it is wrapped up in most of the education research work. Another key finding of interest, and this one is an example from Tanzania, we note, and this is cross-cutting in most of the context, there were fewer women school leaders, authors, experts in the area, and the publication were quite few, and most of these publications were grey resource, very few published resource in those renowned journals. Importantly, the collaboration, which is very critical because we noted that there was a limited collaborations among school leaders, researchers in Sub-Saharan Africa, where in country it's much better. You can see 55%, for example, and then when it goes to Sub-Saharan level, it becomes much less, 4%. And then even if you go outside beyond Sub-Saharan Africa, it's just barely 16%. So we definitely encourage collaboration within institution and beyond institution and within Sub-Saharan African and also outside. Thank you. So I mentioned about co-creation of research agenda, and that is what has informed the theme. For example, as I mentioned, in this context, I'm talking about Pan-African context. So for Pan-African, just to mention that we'll have the co-creation workshop in February 2026 to be hosted in one of the countries. But most importantly, already we have that's something that guides the theme. For example, we have connected the theory of change of this great work as mentioned by my colleague earlier. We also have taken context into the previous topic that were obtained from the foundational phase. We talked about foundational phase where Rwanda, Kenya, and Ghana were in those spaces, and there was some great topic of interest that were not done in this area. So we have also taken context into that. And then this also has we also have got some good insight in triennial engagement, where we were very present in the space as school leaders expert. And from that also we got some very good insight on what can inform the Pan-African theme. Also, most importantly, we also did the interviews for that space. As I mentioned, they are during triennial and also online. So those are what informed the Pan-African. For Tanzania, on the other hand, the co-creation workshop has already happened. In addition to all the great work, for example, the theory of change, as an example, we did the survey within the context in Tanzania. We also did the desk review for the co-creation, which it's in the screen here, just to show you how extensive this work is. The prioritization of school leadership research topics that was discussed following this great work. Of course, it includes presentation of the mapping finding, identification of the knowledge gap that was agreed within the team. The great stakeholders were in the space, and it was discussed with reflection, telling us, for example, us discussing how this for sure is a real gap that is documented by evidence. And then importantly, we came up with those themes that we have now documented in those what you are seeing online, for example, within this grant application. Some of the area of interest for this, the theme is, for example, for PANA, the priority theme is leadership, preparation and development pathways, Afrocentric leadership, equity, inclusion and social justice in school leadership, leadership influence on teachers' practice and learning outcome, leadership in digital transformational and edtech, which is education technology, system enablers, which is policy accountability, autonomy network, and for all this is for effective leadership, distributed leadership, including middle leadership, student leadership, and district level instructional leadership, and school leadership in emergencies, crisis, stroke crisis in the African setting. So when we talk about crisis, we don't talk about only, for example, COVID-19 as an example. Rather, I talked about education reforms in this system, like CBC, for example, and all that. Those are things that need a quick solution to the new system in place. So those are the things we're talking about as an emergency, among others. So just to note, this priority theme, we were very keen not to give direct specific topics to for research ideas, rather themes to guide you based on the need. And now the team can come up with a very innovative topic, suggestions on how they want to handle this based on these themes. You can go to Tanzania now. So for Tanzania, the research teams, as you note, there are a couple of them here. For example, instructional leadership, best practices and models of effective leadership, partnership and collaboration came out very strongly, and partnership and collaboration was cross-cutting, even Sierra Leone and Malawi as an example. Leadership and inclusion, equity as an example, ICT integration in school. This is very critical with the concept of AI in the space as well. So those are the few themes. Just but mention that, as I said again, it's broader themes to guide the applicants on those areas of interest that has been co-created with various stakeholders in the space. So why do we want to have this? Why do we have these grants, and why do we want team members to work very hard in terms of applying for these grants? So we acknowledge that we need to generate rigorous, contextual, relevant evidence in the space. As we noted, there are very few evidence in terms of school leadership. Importantly, is to improve the visibility and accessibility of school leaders' research produced by African researchers for decision making. And also strengthening the local research capacity and promoting sustainability. And lastly, is to strengthen leadership practices and inform education policy and reform. Just to mention, in terms of why the grant, all in all, and we will ensure that through this process, will enhance uptake among the right space for the African, basically African research for Africans. Thank you. I will like to invite Dr. Edmond to continue with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leila. So good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to this session. I believe this session is probably...
Edmond, you are muted, or I can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm not
Yes,
muted.
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much to everyone. And I'm grateful to my two colleagues who have at least given the landscape of what the ACSL project is about and what we have done so far. It is my opportunity to now take you through the real meat, what the issues are when it comes to what the grants are all about, what we are talking about, what we mean by grants, what types of grants that we are talking about, how you apply for the grants, and so on and so forth. So first of all, the grants are basically, two main types, okay? We have the descriptive action research grant, and then we have the comparative action research grant. Now, let me start with the descriptive action research grant. The descriptive action research grants that we have defined to mean this is to focus on, just give me a second. This focuses on observing and describing what is happening in a real situation without trying to compare groups or test different interventions. Okay, so it's pretty much straightforward. For example, you can say that if you want to understand why students arrive late in school, maybe you would want to undertake this research. Maybe a teacher notices persistent lateness among students. She may observe the arrival patterns or interview students and record factors such as transportation challenges, home responsibilities, and school distances. Basically, a straightforward form of research that this tends to look at. Now, the duration for this particular grant is just 12 months. Not 12 years, 12 months. And the target audience is basically individual researchers. So obviously for good reasons, for it to have individual researchers. And we are particularly interested in beginner researchers, researchers that are, up and coming. Of course, it is not limited to, researchers that have been in the system for quite some time. Then the other type is the comparative action research. And now this involves comparing two or more approaches, groups, or institutions to see which one works better in improving a problem. So that also requires some amount of work if you need to carry out such a research. An example could be comparing maybe two teaching methods of reading for improvement. Maybe a teacher uses the phonetics-based instruction in one class and a whole language instruction in another class to compare and see the differences. This may take a longer period in gaining your results. And so this type of grant, if you are applying for, you would know that you have to conduct the research for 24 months. And the target group that this research is looking at is universities and research organizations and consortia. It's important to indicate that together these two grants provide both country-level depth, regional breadth, and ensuring practical, scalable, and contextually relevant outcomes. That is the objective of these two grants and these two comparative research and action research focus. So let's go into the details of what each of them comes with as far as the figures are concerned. So for descriptive action research, as you've already heard from my two colleagues, we have it both in Tanzania and at the Pan-African level. Now, the award is going to these two specific countries, or should I say country and then the Pan-African level. Now, for the descriptive action research, there are a total of 14 of them. Okay, there are a total of 14 of them. Now, you would find that for the descriptive action research, there are 10 alone in Tanzania. And for the PANA, at the PANA level, they are 15. Now, for each of them, you have 15,000 for each. Okay, that is at the descriptive action grants. Now, when you come to the comparative action research grants, you have in Tanzania a total again of 4. And then at the PANA level, you have a total of 10. If I say PANA, that's Pan-African. So in total, at the Pan-African level, for descriptive and comparative action research, the total number is 25 grants that are going to be awarded. And then at the Tanzanian country level, we have a total of 14. That is both descriptive and comparative put together. Now, as I indicated, for descriptive action research grants, let me repeat that, it's 15,000 per grant, okay? And it's up to 12 months. And then for comparative action research, the total amount for each is 35,000 USD, up to a total of 24 months. Now, what are the areas you can apply these grants to? What will the grants cover? The grants will cover direct research expenses, including the researcher's time, clearly specifying levels of efforts and rates, basically talking about the professional fees of the researcher. We're also talking about issues of research materials, data collection, travel logistics for collaboration or field work, dissemination, knowledge, and sharing activities. These are the broad 4 areas that this grant is going to cover. Please note that you are eligible or you are allowed to get support from other sources, because we believe that if whatever you are engaged in as far as the research is concerned, there's a possibility for you to get other grants that would support that research. Okay? But there's a lacuna there, provided that such funding does not fully cover the same research cost. Okay? So you would probably, those of you who would apply and be lucky to be given the grants, you would have submitted your, technical and financial proposal, and you would have indicated in details what the money would cover. If you submit and you get it through, you must know that if you are getting another support or another grant from somewhere, that grant should not be funding what we have as ESSA approved for you, because we don't want that sort of duplication. It's possible that there may be some contingencies along the way. You can use that grant to take care of that, but it shouldn't be used for whatever that you have been approved to use it for. So in summary, we're looking at data collection, the analysis of the data, training issues and needs, stakeholder engagement, dissemination of the report and the report itself, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Now, ineligible expenses. What are the things that you can't use the funds for? Okay. Now, the funds are meant to be used directly in contributing to research activities. If you recruit a personnel who has no direct link, who is not a researcher, maybe you recruit an administrative officer to come and be doing administrative work in the office, that money cannot be used in paying that administrative officer. So you may take the extra grant, the grant that you may get from another source, to probably pay, the administrative officer. But as long as the person is directly linked, we have the profile of the person has a direct link to the research activity, definitely the funds are eligible to be used. Manuscript preparation after the project duration is an ineligible expenditure. Trainings that are unrelated to projects, such as general professional development, maybe once the money comes, some grantees may want to go and now pursue an MBA or want to go and pursue project management professional, especially when it's not related to school leadership. These are not things that you can use the funds for. Cost of computers, internet, bandwidth, hardware and software, and so on and so forth. These are hardware things that we believe the money cannot be used for. Cost of electricity, water, insurance, expenses, cost associated with entertainment and social events, conferences that fall outside the scope of the research grant, especially outside Africa for African-based applications. You can't use that, the money for that. But outside Africa for Africa-based applicants and outside Tanzania for Tanzania-based applicants, that is what we are talking about. Those are the things that we cannot use the grant for. But let me say that this list is not exhaustive. It is not exhaustive. So let's not tie ourselves to it. In circumstances that you may not be clear of what you think you can use the grant for or you cannot use the grant for, you are at your liberty to write for a no objection. The team will look at it and see whether it falls within the context of what the grant can be used for. And then once you receive a no objection or an objection, then you know how to proceed. Next slide, please. So what are the things that are eligible for the use of the grant at the PANA level, at the Pan-African level? Applicants for these grants must meet the following criteria. The first, which is so important, is the nationality. Researchers must be African citizens currently based in any of the African countries, including Tanzania, okay? Secondly, the focus area, which has already been enumerated by my colleague. The proposed research must focus on areas identified among the priority areas related to school leadership in Africa. And we've already looked at that. Leila talked quite extensively about that. Education, we are interested, once this is a research grant, we are expecting that the PI, that is what do you call it? The principal investigator must have a PhD. And I have to repeat that. The principal investigator must have a PhD and be working in a university, research institute, or government department, ministry, anywhere in Africa, within Africa. Language is also key. The application, and the submission of the research report should be in English or French, okay? And for geographical location, we are interested in the grants coming from, the applications coming from the entirety of Africa. But if you find yourself in Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Malawi, and Uganda, of course, those are the countries that we are working in, and those countries will be given priority. Now, still on the eligibility criteria, let's look at Tanzania. Applicants for these grants must meet the following, which is not too different from what we just saw. The nationality, researchers must be Tanzanian citizens, currently based in Tanzania, mainland, and Zanzibar. The focus areas, as has been indicated earlier, about 6 of them. Proposed research must fit within any of these. We are also saying that the education, that, PI must be a PhD holder, based in Tanzania, mainland, or Zanzibar. Language, the application and the submission of the research report should be in English. It should be in English. Now, for geographical location, we are saying that the school leadership grants are intended for Tanzania, covering both mainland and Zanzibar. So if you apply from any part of Africa, if you're applying for the Tanzanian grant, you automatically will be ruled out. It is meant for Tanzania, for that matter. So what are the application requirements? What are the things that you need to be able to, put in your bid? First of all, you must, download the application form and fill it out. There must also be a cover letter, maximum of 500 words, okay, written by you, not by AI. It has to, because we have a way of also checking to see that this is really done by you. Research proposal, maximum 2,000 words, okay? You must also submit your financial proposal, okay? Some people use technical proposal. It's the same as a research proposal. So research or technical proposal, and then your financial proposal. Then the curriculum vitae for each of your members, the PI, and then the rest of the members. Then references must also be indicated in the application. Then, of course, list of collaborators. As one of the key things that we are very much insistent on. I want all of you to note that it is mandatory to utilize the budget and collaborator templates shared. I'm sure that in the application process, you would have seen the link. You must use the collaborator. If, of course, the fact that you are going to collaborate, you must use that, template. And please do not request for edit access. Rather, download copies of the 2 forms onto your machine for offline use. You might not be able to key it in directly because of the complications that may come with it. So we encourage everyone to download the form and fill it in and then upload it. That would be the best way to go about it. Now, in evaluating your proposals, when we receive them, what are the key things that we'll be looking out for? What are the things that will be very much interested in looking out for. The relevance to school leadership and policy needs. It's one of the key things that we are going to be interested in seeing. To what extent does your proposal deal with issues of relevance as far as school leadership and policy needs are concerned? How have you thought through in terms of carrying this work? What is the methodology? How clear is the methodology? Is it clear enough for us to be able to follow through? How are we going to be able to ensure that the methodology is able to make sense with what you have intended to carry out, and whether there is even the correlation between what you want to do and how you intend to do it. Then ethical soundness. To what extent does your proposal, how ethical is it? Have you gone through the ethical processes? Have you enumerated how you are going to deal with issues of ethics as far as the submission of your proposal is concerned, and particularly in countries where there may be a lot of stringence when it comes to conducting research? What procedure do you want to follow as far as meeting the ethical considerations are concerned in your country? Impact, potential, and use of findings, okay? Then experience and capacity of the research team is obvious. Budget, how realistic is your budget and how justifiable it is. And then the gender equity, inclusion, and consideration is very important, and realistic and coherent timelines. As I indicated, we have 2 years. 2 years is 2 years. 1 year is 1 year. So we have to be very realistic with what we intend to do at every stage of what we want to conduct, and ensure that we are within the time frame of what we intend to carry out as far as the research is concerned. Now, inclusivity consideration in the selection criteria. What are the things that we want to ensure we hope to see in your proposal? Gender equity is key. Regional representation, okay? Topics that cover marginalized groups, rural, gender, hard to reach areas as far as school leadership is concerned. Inclusion of early career researchers. To what extent have you, your list, how have you captured early career researchers? Does your list or collaborators include such people? Collaboration and partnership, especially when it comes to mentorship, is one key thing that we'll also be interested in seeing as far as the selection criteria is concerned. To what extent have you addressed these 5 key cardinal points that are concerned when it comes to research? So what do we expect from guarantees? Okay. Research duration, as I indicated, is to conduct the research within 12 or 24 months based on the grant type that you decide to go for. Now, meetings, we will be holding meetings, attending bi-monthly project meetings hosted by the African Center for School Leadership and ESSA, and engage with policymakers to enhance buy-in with relevant stakeholders. And you also would be required to submit midterm and final reports. It is also expected that you would produce policy briefs within 3 months after completion. Okay. Then as far as manuscripts are concerned, you would have to submit peer-reviewed journal manuscripts within 12 months post the project implementation or post your grant expiration. And then as far as accountability is concerned, maintain proper financial documents for purposes of audit. Thank you very much. And at this point, I will hand over to my colleague, Leila.
Thank you so much. This is the potentially some of the potential questions that we have been asked previously, but I have seen under the Q&A section, we are doing a very good job in terms of sending in questions, and we are responding promptly. The team are already there. But some of the potential questions that have been asked that I would allow also the team to ask so that we can respond together is what's the population target and category? For example, am I allowed to use the same topic I will be using for my PhD to apply for this grant? If I can pause there. So the population target basically is on related education topic on school leadership. The target is secondary education, school leadership with an audience of secondary education. We are also allowing higher basic education. For example, some countries have grade 9, grade 10, 11, which is quite higher. So we can also look at school leadership in those contexts. But not tertiary education, not foundational learning, not early childhood development, among others. So the target basically is secondary education as an example. In terms of PhD, as long as the work is within the specified timeline of 12 months for descriptive action research and up to 24 months for comparative action research, that's okay. The 24-month have been pushed, but you don't have to use all the 24 months, but you cannot exceed beyond 24 months for the comparative. We take note that it will require more work for comparative context, but you cannot exceed 24, but you can come down to, let's say, 18 months, 12 months, 15 months, but it can be less than 12 months because, of course, even the descriptive team are working on 12 months. Another question of interest, I just have to read. Eligibility by applicants, which institution qualify to apply? Can tech startup apply for this grant? Can an NGO apply? So we have specific grants for institution, NGOs as an example, which is the comparative, including individual. So for example, an NGO can apply on the comparative action research, but they cannot apply to individual, the descriptive one as an example, which is strictly for individual as an example. All institutions are open as long as you're working on education research on school leadership. As your work is linked to education, school leadership work linked to the population I've just talked about earlier. Should the researchers use company or personal details? At individual, of course, you have to use individual details. At organizational level, for example, NGOs and other institutions, be okay to use company details. We are a group of researchers from 6 different African countries, and this includes Tanzania colleagues. Can we apply for a consortium? Okay, so this is okay as a consortium, right? So we are not restricting in terms of number of collaborations. That is okay, but we have specific grant for Tanzania context with Tanzania researchers. So for example, let's say I'm in Tanzania, but I want to join the group for PANA in Zambia, totally in order. We have no problem as long as then the first applicant is from Tanzania. That is okay because it means you're collaborating. We are not refusing any collaboration within other group. But the Tanzania research need to focus in Tanzania space, and it need to be by Tanzania researchers. I think you are allowed to collaborate, not I think, you're allowed to collaborate with other collaborators as long as the lead author is from Tanzania and the work is in Tanzania. For Tanzania specifically. For PANA, it is okay to collaborate. It should be in other African context except Tanzania because Tanzania have their own specific grant. So we need also to give chance to the others. All African context with African researchers in African institutions. I will go this one and then I'll open it up because we cannot only respond to this one. So eligibility by country for school leadership research grant for Tanzania citizen. Can the PI be from another country and the rest from Tanzania? No, it should be the other way. The PI needs to be from Tanzania with a number of collaborators from Tanzania, and we can allow a few from other country if possible. And the work need to focus in Tanzania. Can the planned comparative study be carried out at the level of single country, or should comparison across several countries? So comparison doesn't mean between a number of countries. It can be the same country, but different contexts. Let's say rural and urban as an example, among other kind of comparatives. So basically comparing strategies, interventions. It could be within the same country or beyond a country, but it doesn't mean you have to go to another country for it to compare. Yeah. And there's another slide on this. Let me see. This is the last one. Oh, there's another one. Okay. So on funding rules, budget and allowable cost, there are caps in the funding of overhead and professional fee. So professional fee, I believe that's what you call like staff fee, like based on level of effort. There is no restriction on this, but overhead, this grant does not accommodate overhead, even a single dollar. So we will not pay, will not allow overhead for this, for coming from this grant. I know some institution, they are restricting on that. That is something I think you will be able to cushion from your side. And that's why we said we allow to have another grant. In case you have another grant, we allow it because we are not paying for overhead as an example. When comparing experiences from two countries, is international travel an allowable cost? Yes, it is an allowable cost. Any travel, it's okay. Required documents and submission requirements. What are the collaboration requirements? What is the maximum number of collaborators? There is no maximum number of collaborators. Of course, the more the merrier, but also you understand the complexity of having many in the number. There's no specific requirement as long as the first author, in fact, there is a specific requirement we have put in the grant. The first author need to have a PhD, should be experienced in the education on school leadership. And the co-authors, as an example, they can be from, for example, we're encouraging co-authors to be, example, head of schools, because they're the ones who are in the ground and understand this thing. So such kind of collaborations are encouraged, are not restricted, but are encouraged. But the first author, there's no, it's not negotiable. We need to have a PhD education on school leadership as an example. The others, we have to see. Of course, when it brings quite a lot of applications looking from the interested audience, we'll have to look for collaboration, let's say, for example, among, with emphasis from early career researchers. Gender is also critical, a mix of a number of female and males. Those are the things that will enhance your application and amplify your work if it can help. What is the criteria for selection of members who will undertake the research? I've just talked about it. Those are the criteria, PhD. We encourage early career researchers. We encourage team from the marginalized area and etc. So those are the a few. If you look at the grant application that you have put up, we have put a clear where things are encouraged. For example, head teachers and teachers, for example, when I say head teachers, it could be middle other teacher and etc. But we just want to see collaborations in this space. Ethical requirement. Ethics in each context is very important, depending on the context where you sit. And that is part of the hassle you have to go through if you are to do a research, and that cannot be ignored. You're allowed to include in your expenditure the ethics processing fee as needed. What standard for participants' protection and confidentiality are expected? So basically, we have to follow the right procedures when, let's say, in case of interview and all that. So part of the great work along the, if you have been awarded, is we have to ensure that we have to ensure protection among the people you are interviewing in terms of protection of the data and all that. So all these will be under the section that you're working on, data analysis and data protection. And that is what's expected from a researcher. Is it acceptable to apply more than one grant, e.g. one for descriptive action research and comparative action research at the same time? You are allowed to collaborate in these researches. However, I will discourage to have one PI apply descriptive and action research. You should allow your team members to lead in some while you lead in others. This is to ensure equity in the space and also to uplift the team members within your space. So I will be very discouraging to see one PI applying for both because we just want to ensure that the other team members are equally able, or you are able to mentor them to be what they are today. Thank you. I think that is all from the slide, and I can open now the forum to hear the Q&As. I wonder whether we should be hearing verbally or we should go to the chat.
Thank you, Leila, for going through those. So we can take a few from the Q&As, and then we can also open up to take a few questions verbally, just so we have a blend of the two. So maybe you can start the Q&A, and then Ellie will give Mike access to those with their hands up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me read a few, one or two or three here from the chat. Okay, can one belong to more than one research team for this call? Yes, you can be in more than one, as long as probably you don't become like PI for all both. So that one at least we'll pick it up. Otherwise, the blend of it, we are okay with that. I'm an educational leadership professor from Nigeria, but worked in Asia. Can I apply as the principal investigator? I have experience working in Nigerian university, and my co-researcher is currently working in Nigerian university. That's a very good question. As long as your institution doesn't read institution in Nigeria or any African context, you are not eligible. So basically, it's we need African researchers in African institution, not vice versa. Like you're African researchers, we agree, but you're not linked to African institution. That means you're not eligible. Is a part-time lecturer eligible? Yes, we don't mind in terms of how much time you're putting in terms of research or any work. Yes, you are eligible. Can a PI be from a PhD in technology, social education, or is a limitation? So the PhD should be linked to education. I know school leadership a few space in the market, but linked to education precisely in terms of school leadership, if you can, or education, just PhD education with research experience on school leadership. So we'll expect application and experience on school leadership. So PI qualification must the PI qualification be in school leadership? The PI should have a qualification in education at minimal, bare minimum, with experience on school leadership, and at least research on school leadership where possible. So you can have PhD in education, that's totally in order, but at least we need to show you need to showcase your experience on school leadership. I can now allow the verbal discussion, please.
Thank you, Leila. So we've given access to Dr. Beku and then Fabienne. So the two of you, maybe we can have Dr. Beku first and then Fabienne Habimana. And then we'll take a few after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed. Please proceed.
Dr. Beku, can you hear us? Okay, then maybe we can move on to Fabienne Habimana. Okay, can we have Aminu Bakari Buba?
Hello.
Please go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, and I really learned a lot of tools towards what both scholars have presented in terms of the processes, the grant, the methodology, and all the insights for the PANA section, particularly because I'm coming from Nigeria. I'm a lecturer from the Department of History and Diplomatic Studies for the University of Kashmir. And my question is, I'm a PhD holder, and I don't have a qualification in education. As a PI, is that going to be a disadvantage, or should I collaborate with a colleague who is having a qualification in education and school management? Thank you very much.
I didn't hear very clearly, but what I heard is PhD and education and school leadership. The PI, the first author, need to have a PhD in education with experience on school leadership. So that is very clear. It is an advantage. So probably when you're collaborating, that's why you should look for the right combination. See how that can suit the team within the space. It needs to be a PhD in education and with experience on school leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. So can we have Adebayo Obadiora?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Professor Adebayo Obadiora from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria. My question, number one question is that, is there any opportunity from research for researcher from Nigeria? That's my first question. Hello?
Yes, continue, please. I'm listening. Yes, I'm taking down the question so I can respond together.
Okay. Is it only leadership in education that you are considering? Because I have curriculum as my field. My area of specialization is curriculum. So I have a lot of research that has to do with education and children education in Nigeria. So that's my second question. And can I collaborate with somebody from another country, from Tanzania, just you mentioned the other time? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so opportunity for researchers from Nigeria, yes, there's opportunity for researchers in all African countries. However, there are two advertisements, if you have noted. So the Tanzania one is restricted to Tanzania researchers in Tanzania space. For example, their work need to focus in Tanzania. But the other one, which is the PANA grant, it can go beyond Tanzania. And all the African countries, name them, East Africa, West Africa, and others, Central and all that, Southern and etc. So it is possible. And then the other one is, as mentioned, we justified why we need to talk about school leadership, research on school leadership. And if we continue, as I told you, there are other opportunities in other space. For example, early childhood development, there's others on foundational learning, and there are others at tertiary level, as an example, not necessarily within the African Center for School Leadership. So we have realized that there's a gap on school leadership, precisely in that space of secondary education. And I'm just giving a leeway of higher basic education. So we will not extend beyond this space, and because we need to fill this gap. So that's why we're encouraging, and this grant is restricted to research on school leadership. As long as the target, as I said, is on secondary education, it could be on different topic on various themes, as mentioned in the space. Comparison, yes, you are allowed to collaborate with any person, individual, institution based on the grant within the African space. For example, let's say you're from Nigeria and one of the collaborators is in Tanzania, you're totally allowed to apply for the PANA one. But if the PI is in Tanzania and you are from Nigeria, you are encouraged to apply for the Tanzania grant, as an example. Thank you. Next, please.
Thank you, Leila. Can we please have Francis Ando?
All right. Thank you very much. I just wanted to find out, I put it in the chat session. So someone who's a PhD in economics, but heads a teacher training institution that trains students or teachers in early grade, upper primary, DHS, basic education for short. Can this person, with the experience he has in school leadership, and also PhD in quantitative, like economics or economics of education, can that person qualify to be a PI?
Okay. So the PI, the only restriction we are putting is the PhD in education with experience on school leadership. So what you have explained all this, if that suits there, totally in order. But I hear now is PhD in economics and not PhD in education. So I will encourage where possible for you to look for the PI linked to PhD in education, and you can come in as a co-author with experience on school leadership. Unless maybe I will see what you have put in, but that's what I can encourage broadly, that the first author need to have PhD in education with experience on school leadership, but PhD in education is very critical with no, there's no leeway on that as an example. Thank you. Please,
Thank you.
next.
Can we please have Elizabeth? Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Hear me, I can speak on.
Okay, please go ahead.
Oh, beautiful. I seriously want to appreciate the organizers of this webinar. Thank you very much. To go straight to my point, I like learning by starting. All you've taught us today, I've taken notice of them. And I would like to start, but I need a mentor. Because at one point or the other, I may want to ask questions, stuck here or there. So I just need help. So I don't know who can follow me up or who I can connect with just for a follow-up. Because when I begin the work, that's when I'll have more questions or anything to do. But all what you have taught today, I understand it properly. But I need to, when I start applying or doing one or two, I'd like somebody to follow me up. So that's just my request. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. So there is a opportunity to inquire along the way, because sometimes, when you start the real application, then you realize, I'm not very clear on this. There is inquiry emails and contacts and even phone numbers you have added, so that sometimes you can be supported promptly. Please feel free and we'll respond promptly. We'll be on standby.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question here I want to read, very interesting. In Kenya, I'm just reading. Now we have junior secondary school headed by primary school head teachers in primary school. Can one research in junior secondary school in Kenya? Yes. That's why I said we have a higher basic education. And I was just thinking of some reforms like Kenya. And sometimes in other contexts, we have grade 8, 9, 10 as part of primary team. So yes, all those are part of the higher basic education. We'll allow research works in the space, secondary and higher basic education. When I say higher, I'm avoiding the ECD and the foundational learning group, because there are other opportunities for them, as just as an example that we've just closed in another project within the organization. Yes, I'm happy to receive more.
Thank you, Leila. So we have a few more. We can do Michael, Hilda, and then Patrice. Michael, can you hear us? If you can, please unmute and then ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me? I can hear you.
Yes,
Can you
please go
hear me?
ahead.
All right. So thank you for the presentation. Colleagues of mine yesterday were discussing this, but we are based in a UK university, but we want to collaborate or work with researchers in any of the African countries. Are we allowed to be collaborators? Are we allowed to be collaborators with any PI from an African country, especially in the implementation countries that you've listed? Are we allowed to work as collaborators on a project of this sort? Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you. So I think I responded earlier, but yes, let me just say it again. Basically, we are encouraging, because this is it's a very rare space, we're encouraging African research in African institution. So if you have an affiliation with an African institution, totally in order to use that. Otherwise, we will give preference to African research in African institution in this context.
Thank you, Leila. And then we can do Hilda.
Yes, please, Hilda.
Hilda, please unmute.
Sorry, I had started
Yes.
speaking and I hadn't unmuted. Sorry about that. So I was saying thanks for this informative session. At least it has clarified quite a lot of concerns. However, my question is one. I know you have emphasized the concept of the PI having a PhD and school leadership experience. So I just wanted to clarify on that aspect of the school leadership experience. Are you then referring to that at some point in my life, I have either been a principal, deputy principal, head of a school institution of some sort? Or does this then, would I qualify for school leadership if I have been in academia throughout? I've been a teacher, now I'm at the university level or at a research institution. I would just like some clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. You don't have to be a teacher or an administrator or that great space for you to be a school leader, to have school leadership experience. You could be working on school leadership research and you could be in an NGO. Totally in order. You are qualified as long as you have PhD in education as a PI and your collaborators on average on that. And a PI, PhD in education on school leadership. It could be school leadership in research, school leadership in practice, totally in order, or in the policy space where you have worked on school leadership related policies and practice in the space. As long as the trick is PhD in education with that combination where possible.
Thank you.
Someone also asked similar question in the chat. Could you indicate the context of focus again, ECD, secondary or higher education? So we are focusing on school leadership in secondary education and, as I said, higher basic education with an example, for example, Kenya, who I've just asked, junior school. They have introduction of junior school or other context where there's up to year 12, year 11, year 9. We can consider higher basic education, not ECD, not foundational learning, and not tertiary in the context, let's say in the university, not that spaces. Another one, I also have a long experience in university administration. Is this helpful? Yes, this is helpful as long as you are collaborating or you have experience on school leadership work. And if you want to be the first author, you need to have a PhD in education, or if you're collaborating, we're encouraging also early career researchers who not necessarily doesn't have to have PhD as long as you're collaborating, but the first author need to have a PhD in education. Okay, I can read one more, then I can go back to the, is having a PhD in education a must? Yes, please. Highly encouraged. There's another one. Okay, that's not a question. It was just someone saying they are ready for collaboration. Please, let's open up for some questions.
We have a question from Patrice. Patrice's hand is up, but the question was also asked in the chat, but you can go ahead.
Yes, please.
Hello, you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. The first one is it possible for a project to be descriptive and comparative? Is it possible to have one project, descriptive project, and comparative one? The second question is that I want to hear more from what we call scholar leadership. For example, I'm anthropologist at the university level. I'm training PhD student and master student. And yes, so can I apply for the public grant, for example?
Thank you. All right, so the first question, as you see, the grant has been separated from descriptive and the other one is comparative. We have a clear definition of those in that descriptive, it focuses on observing and describing what is happening. You don't have to compare, and that is linked to the resources that has been put there. While the other one, you are comparing two or more approach. So I know sometimes descriptive lead to a comparative, but because of time, descriptive is restricted to 12 months. So for you to do a comparative, there's no doubt that you need to do a bit of descriptive for you to compare in terms of methodologically. So I don't want to say like you can have both in one so that you scoop 35 plus 15. That will not be ideal. So descriptive research, let it be descriptive research. However, comparative research, when you're elaborating, put the methodology right to show that at the end game, you are comparing two groups or two approaches or two scenarios as an example. So those are separate entities and should not be combined. The other one is on school. You said you're anthropologist, lecturing, supporting master's student and etc. So such kind of a high level experience, we encourage you to collaborate with other team members as co-PIs. As long as your degree, PhD doesn't say education with experience on school leadership, I would really encourage you to collaborate. And that's why we realize that school leadership, it's a very rare space and collaboration is very important in this context. And also importantly, we don't want to leave the good members, for example, head teachers who are in the space just because they don't have experience in research as an example. That's why we are giving this opportunity for collaboration so that one can collaborate with other to complement each other in their context. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. So we can take the final three. We can do Nanama, Steve, and then Dr. George.
Hi, Lena and everyone. Thank you so much for the very comprehensive presentation. My question is actually feeding back from your your emphasis on collaboration. I wonder if there's a way to, considering that a lot of participants have questions around, their own eligibility and the possibility of collaborating with others. I wonder if there's the possibility to connect participants on this webinar so that, like collaborations could start from there. So for instance, if there's someone who has a PhD in anthropology, but then there's a co-PI who could serve as a PI, but there's a co-PI who has that school leadership experience, whether on the ground or in, civil society context, etc. There's a way that that collaboration could, or initial conversations can kind of happen or start happening. So that's a question / feedback / comments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's very good observation and request. So I'm already seeing in the chat someone just writing their name, ready to collaborate. I'm from this institution, and here is my email as an example. So yes, if you look through this chat, is an opportunity and the beginning of collaborations. I would like to give this opportunity to Krista to tell us after this webinar how the participants, if there will be a platform where an email can be shared and etc. On that so that we can see if there'll be opportunity to write an email to each other or to check on each other's profile as an example. Over to Krista.
Thank you, Leila. So I think what we can do is the email addresses that have been shared on the chats, if the people who've shared them consent to it, something we can share around as we're sending the thank you emails. So if you are interested in collaborating, you can just put your email address and your details, and then we'll just share around all the different details that were shared over email, so you'll be able to reach out to people directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krista. So on that, I also see another chat here for comparative action research grant. The online form says individual can also apply. Yes. So for comparative action, either individual, institution, or organization, they are okay. You can apply it as well. So they are all part of eligible groups. For example, let's say we are a group of individuals want to do comparative, totally in order. You can be different institution, let's say an NGO, a university, combining as an example. Yes, totally encouraged. There's no restriction, but the individual one, I mean, the descriptive action research is strictly for individual, but the comparative, it's more than individual. It could be organization, it could be institutions of various caliber, and also including individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. So we can take two more. We can take Steve and then Dr. George.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Steve with the NAT Institute for Research and Industrial Relations Studies. I would like to ask two questions. So first of all, with regards to the comparative research, I want to know if it can be conducted in a single country. That is, let's say in different regions, but in a single country. That's the first one. The second one is, do you accept a PI and also a co-PI and other collaborators, or strictly we should go for just a PI? So these are the two questions, please.
Thank you, Steve. So yes, a comparative study can be conducted in one country as long as you have two or more approaches or different group or situation you're comparing. It could be within a country. The second one, do you accept PI and co-PI? So for us, PI is the first author with all those relevant experience you have talked about. The rest basically are co-PIs. Yes, they're allowed. You're allowed to have a number of them as needed between PI and co-PIs of different experience. We are highly encouraging early career researchers. You should look at gender as well where possible. But the main thing is the combination of experience. What does one bring on the table? Very important. Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Leila. And then can we have Dr. George, please? Please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much, our coordinators and presenters for this afternoon. Dr. George Areba is the name from PC University, Kenya. Allow me first to appreciate the fact that ESSA has come up to powerfully give us opportunities, especially those of us in education leadership, because there's been a gap here, and we have been unable to fill this because we don't have so many of the organizations giving us a chance to fill this gap. So congrats to ESSA, and allow me to say that already the question has been answered. I was wondering, you just immediately answered my question. I was wondering if I can be able to do a comparative study within the same country, which I think you have answered here by saying that as long as you are engaging maybe more than one approach, you can still compare in the same country. And I think I'm now satisfied. Thank you so much, presenters, and we're looking forward to collaborate more powerfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Areba.
Perhaps
you for
I think this one was forgotten. Sorry. I'm here wondering, an ed teacher who is a PhD ongoing student within the same university, can he be part of the team research as long as he's not a PI? An ed teacher in a secondary school doing PhD in my university, who is a student, let me be very precise, a student of PhD whom I supervise, and an ed teacher. Can he be mentored under this grant and become one of the team members in this grant?
Okay, thank you. If I heard you well, the voice was a bit far. Head teacher who is currently doing PhD in the university, can he be a co-author? Yes, he can be a co-author. In fact, we are encouraging such kind of collaboration, as long as he will not be the PI because he doesn't have PhD. But yes, as the head teacher and all that, he has qualified to join the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. So we are done with the questions now, so we can hand over now for closing remarks. But just before that, my colleague Ellie will be putting the post-workshop survey in the chat, which will be available in both English and French. So if you could just please take the time to complete it, would truly appreciate it. Thank you. Over to you, Kwame.
Thank you, everyone, and sorry I joined a bit late. I was on another call, so as you can see, I'm Kwame Eme. I'm also part of the ACSL team. I would like maybe first to say thank you to Pauline and the entire ESSA team for taking the lead on this well-organized exercise. Thank you, Chantal, as well from the center for your usual support in those activities. And then thanks for the participant. I can see with the number of questions that there is a lot of interest. So we're really happy that you find some interest in this research grant. We know how important school leadership is for strengthening learning outcome and education systems. So what we want now is to ensure that research can really contribute to this agenda. And then this research can come from our context, our expertise, and our realities. As I think Edmond and Leila mentioned that briefly in the presentation. So I hope this session has given you a lot of clarity on the purpose of the grant, the research priorities, and the application process. I think someone from the team will be available to respond if you have questions. So as you now getting ready maybe to start developing your proposal, we would like to wish you good luck. I really encourage all the potential applicants to think about their unique contribution to research and what it can bring with regard to school leadership. So thank you once again for joining and for your commitment to advancing school leadership through research. The team is looking forward to receiving your proposals, and we wish you all the best in the next steps. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.